On today's show, FanDuel has set the over-under for the Cavs at 48.5 wins this season. I like the over, and I'll tell you why with Matt Fontana next right here on Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, my new Substack, The Inside Shot. Joined today by the one and only Matt Fontana. You might know him from his daily show over at Big Play, the work he does on ESPN Radio, or maybe even the radio show that he and I used to do together every day on a certain radio station in town. But I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well and help us to grow the show. Also, we are on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content as soon as it comes your way. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, is sponsored by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. So it is over-under season in the NBA as we are less than a week away. We will be talking about Cavs regular season basketball within the week. That means it's sort of your last chance to get in on whether you think a team such as the Cavaliers is going to go over or under their projected win total. We, of course, on this show are going to use FanDuel for that number. FanDuel has the number set at 48.5 for the Cavs this year. I've got a number of reasons why, Matt, but I think that this Cavs team is going to go over, and I'm not sure that it's going to be all that close to that 48.5 number. I'm very curious where you come out on this.
Yeah, I like the over as well. And I think when I look at the schedule, we know the NBA teams that seem like juggernauts, come January, February, this star player is out or the load management is starting to factor in. And I think that has to be taken into account when you start to talk about totals and over-unders and wins. And obviously Vegas and FanDuel, they know where the number kind of should be at. I'm looking for the next level of things that could flip it. And when I look at it, I see, okay, you play Boston 4 times this season. You got them November, early December, middle of February twice, and then you're done for all of March and the couple of weeks of April. So like if you're avoiding those kind of teams, you think you should have an easier schedule on the way out. I also then kind of look at road trips. They have a brutal road trip in March where they're out on the West Coast, LA, Sacramento, Phoenix, Utah. Those road trips always kind of have to factor in. So I still like the over. I think the improvement of the East would be easy to say, okay, that should knock them down a win or two because they've got to play the Knicks. They have to play the 76ers. But when I try to look at the schedule and kind of how it maps out, I think it's going to be beneficial for the Cavs to get their offense set early to kind of see who they are. But then I just see some lulls. I just see some stretches here where I think they can pick up some easy wins to try to push that over. So, again, I've got them right around that mark, and I don't think we're talking about a 57, maybe 59 win team. I don't think so. But, Danny, I like the over because I do think they're a 50-win basketball team for sure.
No, I don't think we're talking about a team that's going to win 57 or 59 games. Like, I think that's going a little bit too far. And I'm bullish on this Cavs team. I'm optimistic about this Cavs team. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And it actually made me think of another thing that you can find odds on FanDuel for that I don't know if I like more than I like the over, but the value is definitely the better. You brought up, when the Cavs play Boston and how it's a little bit earlier in the season, right? They're in the same grouping for the NBA Cup. And that's kind of where my eyes go with that, because look at what Boston, and I still think Boston is the best team in basketball. And what I'm about to say has nothing to do with how I feel about the chances of the Boston Celtics being able to repeat as NBA champions. But we don't know when Kristaps Porzingis is going to be back on the floor for the Celtics. The Cavs might play Boston 2, maybe even 3 times before Porzingis returns to action or is back to full strength, right? Like, that is a significant thing. And then you take a look elsewhere. Yeah, Jaylen Brown is going to be really motivated after not being on Team USA. But you also can look at 3 of their 5 best players in Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, and Derek White. those three guys all were on Team USA. They were all on Team USA right after playing basketball until mid-June. That means their offseason really didn't start until like right around, early to mid-September. Well, right now, as we record this, it's October 17th. As you listen to this, it's October 18th. That's not a very long offseason. So I would almost buy the Celtics getting off to a slow start. And the Cavs are plus 185 to win the NBA Cup East Group C, which is their grouping. I like that maybe even more than I like their over at 48.5, just because, plus 185 is such better value. But in getting back to the win total, I take a look at what they were the last couple of years. So 2 years back, they won 51 games. Donovan Mitchell's first year in Cleveland. They played awesome in the regular season. We know what happened in the playoffs. If you look at that roster, and then you look at the roster from right now, and what I believe is an upgrade in the coaching staff from then to now, you can't tell me that this team is going to be 3 wins worse than that team was. Like, that's where you lose me a little bit. And then you can even say, well, last year they're running back the roster. They won 48 games. Okay, you're right. They also had terrible injury luck. Like, if they have the same injury luck they had last year, yeah, that under might hit. But if they stay relatively healthy, I think that's kind of all it takes for them to win 50-plus games.
Sure, and I guess the only devil's advocate part of it would be is they had to go on a big streak with Mobley and Garland being out, and that's kind of hard to do. But I'm with you, the same thing. I would say, like, the over – I like it by a couple of games just for a lot of those things. And then we also talk about a lot of the teams that they'll face. Milwaukee is going to be an injury load management team. We know Joel Embiid has already come out and said, I'm probably never going to play in back-to-backs ever again. Like, there are so many teams that you're going to be competing against with. And even to your point about Boston, which I agree with you, there's going to be so many teams that one of two things. Number one, they probably don't care about the regular season because they know once we make the playoffs, yeah, they want to be a top seed and have home court advantage, but they're really going to be setting their sights higher than that. But there are a lot of teams that navigate that regular season differently, right? And we all know that even when LeBron was here, he didn't care about the regular season because as long as they made it, they knew what they were going to do. So when you have Milwaukee, as much as you're going to have them on the schedule, when you have Boston, when you have 76ers, even the Knicks, I think the Knicks actually are a little bit out to prove a point. And actually kind of like a bet for them to be the number 1 seed in the East. I agree with a lot of things you're saying in Boston. I just don't know if they care all that much. They're going to take their time off. They're going to be, a little more well-rested, I think, heading into the playoffs. I think Joe Mazzulla has learned a lot of that over time. So if I had to place a little sneaky bet on over-unders, I might actually take the Knicks to be the number 1 seed. But with all that being said, Danny, I agree. Like, there's just a lot of these teams that are just going to be kind of laying in the weeds a little bit. And playing back and playing off and that kind of stuff. And that's where the Cavs were. I put the Cavs more in that Knicks mindset, though. I think they're out to prove points. I think they're out to prove this offense can work. They're going to be teams that compete every night for wins. I think it's going to be them. I think Orlando was really motivated this year to show a lot of things. So I think some of the top teams, yeah, they're important. But, we used to be there. Like, Boston, I know they see us as a bit of a rival. They're going to get up for the Knicks. They're going to get up for Philadelphia. They're going to get up for Milwaukee. Is that same kind of thing there for the Cavs? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think there are a lot of reasons to point for the over for the Cavs for sure.
I couldn't agree more with what you said about the Knicks specifically and really the 3 other teams, because the way I look at the Eastern Conference, there are 5 teams for 4 spots to get home court.
Yeah.
And what was LeBron's thing when he was here? I don't care what seed we are. Just get me into the playoffs and we'll make it work, right? I think that Milwaukee can have that mindset as a team that has won the title. Boston can obviously have that mindset. And I think Philadelphia, because of the injury history of 2 of their 3 best players, I think they kind of have to have that mindset. Like, I think they're forced into having that mindset. I agree with you on the Knicks. I don't think they have that mindset. I think they're going to be a team that's going to win a lot of regular season games. And I think the Cavs are in that same boat. Like, I don't know that I'm all the way to the Knicks are going to be the 1 seed, but I do think that New York and Cleveland are going to be 2 of the top 3 seeds. That's where I come out on that.
Wow.
And if I think the Cavs are going to be a top 3 seed with how good the Eastern Conference is, there's no way you are getting the number 3 or number 2 seed and only winning 49 games this year.
Right,
I don't see that happening. I know it happened last year, but I don't see that happening again this year. I think
let me ask
the top
you,
4 seeds are probably all going to have 50 wins.
You got to have Boston as your other 3 then, right? So then you're selling kind of Philly on Milwaukee, right?
I think that those two teams are more susceptible to injuries because
I agree. I agree with it. Yeah.
You look at Milwaukee's core. Chris Middleton had surgery on both ankles this offseason. That's not ever good. Brooke Lopez, I think, is 37 or 38 years old. That's not going to be something that lives up. Damian Lillard has not figured out how to work with Giannis. They did not work together all summer. Giannis is still the best player in the conference, and that's awesome. But with the conference being as good as it is, I don't know how far that gets you. And then you mentioned in Philly, Joel Embiid not playing in back-to-backs. Paul George already hyperextended his knee. I don't think it's a significant thing, but that's not a great omen. Tyrese Maxey's awesome too, and he stays healthy, but you're talking about one of your three best players being on the floor all the time. Like that's where I go, okay, the Cavs have a real opportunity here too to win a lot of games in the regular season and finish high up in the Eastern Conference standings.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's the thing. I think it's a lot of what the Cavs want to show, what they want to be, but they're a young team too. And they, like anything, we want to be proven that this roster, it was the right decision to bring him back. The same thing goes for the players. The same thing goes for Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. They all want it to be proven correct that keeping this roster together was the right decision.
Right. And we will find out. There are some outlets that think it was the right decision to keep the roster together. One that's much lower on the Cavs than Matt and I are. We discuss that next right here on today's Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Hims Men's Health. Hims is the place to go because, guys, sometimes intimate moments, they happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside of your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedonnba. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compound products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions do apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Thank you again for making today's Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave some nice words in a review as well. And Matt, we're both higher on the Cavs than some outlets, but we are actually a little bit lower on the Cavs maybe than some other outlets. So I went around because this week is when you start to see a lot of the standings predictions in the NBA, right? Like 1 through 8, or even some places do it 1 through 15 per conference. And the one I want to start with, so we're going to start with the outlets that feel similarly as we do on the Cavs, maybe even a little bit higher than us. And the one that popped out to me right away when I was going through this was John Hollinger at The Athletic. He had the Cavs finishing second in the Eastern Conference, which I don't think is like some wild thing. I think we pretty clearly covered what could go wrong for other teams that could lead the Cavs to finishing second. He had them with 56 wins, which I think even for me, as someone who I consider myself to be pretty optimistic about this team, this roster, this coaching staff, I'm not sure that I see them getting to 56 wins.
Well, and I also think it's interesting that he would have them all the way up there at like the 2 seed with that, when last year New York got it with 50, so he's seeing a big increase in the East of, and again, I'm assuming it's just maybe Boston or maybe the Knicks that kind of run away with it, but to have that big jump there really kind of tells me something. Danny, I guess we asked the question, how would they do that? Let's say that we're going to take John's, that's going to be a fact, right? Like, let's say the Cavs are going to win 56 games. I asked the question, how do they do that then? And you would believe that would be this offense is everything you expected it to be while still having premier defenders with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I would need 3-point shooting to step up from Max Strus. I know there's still a lot of people that are talking about what that lineup should be of 1-3-1 and all that. To have that, that's like 4 or 5 different things that I think have to go right for the Cavs. And I think we're both got on the same page with that. That's just a lot to ask for that big of an increase.
I don't know that it's quite 4 or 5 different things, but I think it's probably one really big thing and maybe 2 or other things. Like, I think the big thing, like if the Cavs are going to win 56 games, I think the non-negotiable, like if you tell me that right now that will happen, instantly my mind goes to, okay, Evan Mobley was an all NBA caliber player. Right. Like that is what it becomes. It's not only that he's a defensive player of the year finalist again, but it's that his offense took a leap and he's, he hits that escalator in his contract because he's second team all NBA. Like he's one of the 10 best players in basketball. I think that needs to be the case for them to get up to 56 wins. I think that's a ton of wins. And this also, I think this probably goes maybe without saying, this means that the Cavs stayed really healthy. Like that Donovan Mitchell didn't miss much time, that Darius Garland got back to all-star form the way he was a couple of years ago, even in Donovan Mitchell's first year in Cleveland, that Evan Mobley was awesome, that Jared Allen doesn't miss time, which obviously is the opposite of what we saw last year. So I think all of those things really need to happen if this team's going to get all the way up to 56 wins. The next one that stuck out to me for, I guess, different reasons was Kevin Pelton over at ESPN, which this is a computer simulation. He had the Cavs in second in the Eastern Conference with like 50.2 wins because it's computer simulation. Like he simulates the season so many times. I don't know how many times, but that's why you end up with the decimal points. So I just rounded to 50 wins for sake of this discussion. But Matt, I don't know. And I know last year we saw it and I get that, but I don't know that we are going to see the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference only have 50 wins again this year. I just don't. I think this conference is too good for that.
No, I agree. And that's funny because, like, again, I've got the standings up from last year. We talked about 56 wins in the East would be, oh man, that'd be the 2 seed. That was only the 3 seed for the Timberwolves last year. Like the Clippers, and there was a drop off because it was the Thunder, Nuggets, and Timberwolves all over 56 and 257 wins. The Celtics were the only 60 win team in all of basketball last year. So yeah, I agree. I don't think 50 is not going to get you there again. It's just not. I think 50 is going to be good for the 4 seed probably. But I also think it is a lot of the rest of the teams. There was some really just bad injuries last year. And there were also some just really incomplete teams. And some of that was injury. I think some of it wasn't just right fit. But I also think, Danny, we're going to get to that point back to the NBA where you just have that big divide, where the 5 teams that are going to win. Like, I really think there's going to be 5 teams that win 50 games in the East this year. I do.
Really?
Yeah. Well, so maybe not 5. Maybe not 5.
I'm glad you said that because the stat that I always look to when people say, how can the Cavs in the Eastern Conference landscape right now, where you've got 5 teams, and some people may even want to include Orlando in there if they believe Paulo Banchero is going to take a step up.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, you have 5 teams between Cleveland, Boston, New York, Milwaukee, and Philly for 4 spots. They ask me, how do the Cavs get home court again? And my answer is you win 50 games. In the modern NBA era, since the playoffs have expanded to 16 teams, to best of 7s all across, well, not best of 7s all across, but 16 teams. There has been 1 team in the Eastern Conference in the modern era that has won 50 games and not finished with home court advantage in the first round, not finished in the top 4. The 1998 Atlanta Hawks, that's the only team that's done that. So if you're going to tell me that we're going to have an event that historically just does not happen in this conference, okay, maybe, but I'm going to guess on the side that one thing that has happened one time, that gigantic outlier, is probably not going to happen again.
No, 5 too much. I think you're right. 4 is probably more my comfortable answer with the 50. Because listen, we know Boston's going to win 50. There's no question on that. I think the Knicks, who I already said might be the number 1 seed, I think they're very clearly 50. I am somebody who is pretty big on Paolo Banchero and the Orlando Magic and think they might have a chance to win 50. And then certainly the Cavs and the 76ers, actually of that group, might be the one that I feel the least about, just because I don't know how they're going to handle load management. I don't know how much they're going to play. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think the East is going to be a lot better this year, mostly because these teams all got better. Think whatever you want about Paul George with his injury. That is very clearly an upgrade there for Philadelphia. The Knicks are probably the most improved team in all of basketball this offseason. The Celtics are not going anywhere. And I think the Bucks just need to get healthy, which they will. I have a lot of questions in teams out west, though, about if they're going to be able to return to form and do all that kind of stuff. But in the East, I do think 5 might be too much. I think you're right. I think 4 teams are going to win 50 games in the East. And again, I hope the Cavs are really one of them.
Up next on today's Locked On Cavs, the win projection that I think is the most accurate for the Cleveland Cavaliers, plus an outlet that is lower on the Cavs than consensus. Matt and I talk about it next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. I tell you guys about FanDuel all the time because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Say it with me. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, you can win big with FanDuel because all you have to do when you get started, you will get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Matt and I have talked a ton about things that are available on FanDuel during today's show. I told you earlier, I love the Cavs to win their NBA Cup group. It's plus 185 on FanDuel as we record this right now. I think that's tremendous value. I think the Celtics are going to get off to a slow start. I don't think they're going to prioritize winning the NBA Cup. I think the Cavs have a real advantage. I think there's a ton of value in that. As I've also mentioned, I love the Cavs to go over their 48.5 win total that FanDuel currently has posted. I think that's the place to go. If you want to bet on the Cavs, if you want $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, put $5 on one of those. Maybe they win, maybe they don't. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I know I like them. But I can predict that if you're a new customer, you'll be getting $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head on over to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com today, and you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, that is FanDuel.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. I want to grow this channel so I can bring you guys the best Cavs content as the season does get underway. Matt, I think those were a little bit, ESPN was low on the win total. The Athletic was high on the win total. Bleacher Report, I think, got this exactly where I'm at. They had the Cleveland Cavaliers winning 54 games, finishing in 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. I don't think that my personal prediction would be any different than this one.
No, I think that's pretty close. It's pretty spot on. So again, it's still crazy that at that 48.5, you're still clearing that by 5 games with a little bit of a wiggle room. And You brought it up earlier, which was so right on. You look at the teams of the past and the talent that was on the roster, because more than anything in the NBA, this is talent. I know you need to run a system or you want to do this, you want to be able to do that, sure, fine. Your talent is the one that is going to win out in some of these games. So the fact that I know, let me put it this way, and I'm sure you agree with me. I think talent-wise, no matter what, this is a 50-win team, just from a talent perspective.
Just if they stay healthy. Like that is kind of what –
then you talk
because last year,
and that's it,
Last year's Cavs team was very clearly better than the Cavs the year before. Now, they got off to a slow start, and I'm talking on paper. Like, the roster last year was better. You didn't have guys like Chetty Osman who couldn't stay in the rotation. Nothing against Lamar Stevens, but, like, there were upgrades that they made last year.
Man, I love Lamar Stevens.
Right, but, like, I think Max Strus in that spot's a better answer. They just couldn't stay healthy, and they still won 48 games. Like, if they're healthy, I just don't see how they're not better than Donovan Mitchell's first year here.
Well, and I also think that as they implement Kenny Atkinson in the offense, like, they're going to come out and all eyes are going to be on November, right? And we're all going to want this to be a quick fix and show that they could score 125 points like a drop of a hat and do this and shoot the threes and do all that kind of stuff. And I think there will be a feeling out period of exactly what they want to do. But I also, again, just different than some of these other teams, I see this as the season-long journey where I truly think this team is going to be striving to be better, but also there's so much room for them to grow and improve under now Kenny Atkinson. So the drive is always going to be there. You're not going to hit a lull in January or coming up to the All-Star break in February, and you're going to sit there and go, yeah, we're just kind of who we are, and we're just kind of waiting around for the playoffs. Like, I think this team is going to be supremely motivated, but it's also going to be a lot of Kenny Atkinson. I'm excited for his experiments to start. What rotations does he like? Does he want to make a change to this player or that, or time or all that? That's going to be exciting. They could still win basketball doing that as well. A lot of times, sometimes you do that and you go, man, they're going to lose games while they figure this out. And I think at some point, the Cavs are going to be good enough, almost borderline of whatever their combinations are, to beat some teams, not the good teams, but some of the bad teams. I think you can put any combination of players they have out there. But you're right. The one thing is circling of health. And as the NBA season goes, as any team goes, somebody's going to get hurt eventually. I don't know who it's going to be. I hope it's not going to be months. It's going to be more weeks. But eventually, guys will have to sit down. And much like they did even with Donovan Mitchell last year, where if he goes to the All-Star game again, which you assume, you have injuries that necessitate him to be playing more minutes early in the year, you might eventually get to that break where you go, you know what? We're sitting down for a week. It's not that he's hurt. Right. It's just we need to sit him down for a week. But I still just feel confident in the rest of this team, and specifically Kenny Atkinson, to be able to still win games if that happens. Again, I hope they can manage it throughout the year and they're competitive as they go. And the other thing, too, and I was just kind of quickly looking through the schedule, for the Cavs. And again, anything can happen and you never know. But I got to tell you, Danny, outside of that one trip out west in December, which, again, you still have the Lakers in there. You don't know what they're going to be. Then they got that other tough road trip in March out west. But even just as it lays out, I don't see a lot of stretches where you're like, they're going to lose 3 out of 5, or they're going to go on a 5-game losing streak. Just strictly on how this schedule is laid out, I think the Cavs I'll tell you one. They got January on this road trip. They start in Indiana. Then they're Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Phoenix, Houston, Philly, Houston. That might be a tough stretch. It might be. Right. But outside of that, I don't see this where you have 4 or 5 playoff teams stacked up in 7 days that you got to play. I really think the Cavs schedule did them a lot of favors this year.
I agree. And I think when you do see tough stretches like that, I think that the Cavs have teams like Charlotte and Chicago and Washington, even Detroit, who I think is going to be improved. Like, they're not going to be the 14-win Pistons anymore. Yeah. But I think that they have those teams kind of sprinkled in at pretty convenient times. If you look at the schedule, where it can kind of break up. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 straight games against playoff or play-in teams, whether it be East or West, and then you're kind of handed, hey, here's a Charlotte team in a game that you should win. So I do think that that's one of the benefits that they have to the schedule. So lastly, the one outlet that is lower, certainly much lower on the Cavs than you and I have them. I don't have a win total from this outlet, but NBC, Matt, has the Cavs finishing 6th place in the Eastern Conference. They've got them behind.
Let me guess.
We talked about a ton. Okay, go ahead.
Let me guess. All right. So that means 5 teams had Boston very clearly, Milwaukee, Philly, New York.
Yep.
It's got to be Orlando.
It's Orlando. They have Orlando finishing 5th. The Cavs finishing 6th.
Yeah.
One, I would also say, if you are a Pacers fan that has found this podcast, that is some massive disrespect. That the Pacers went to the conference finals last year and can't even in any of these have finished in the top 6. But I think for the Cavs to finish 6th, Matt, just about everything that can go wrong would have to go wrong. Because on paper, there's still a ton of talent. Like, I don't see a world in which they're a play-in team, but I think 6 is kind of their floor, and a lot has to go poorly if that's going to be the case.
Well, I think one of the things that would be extremely, go really bad, to your point, be really poorly, is if it just doesn't work with Mitchell, Garland, Allen, and Mobley. And we all know the 3 that are going to be staying here. So that's and another thing about this team figuring it out. I don't think today there is pressure to make the move before the trade deadline, unless, to your point, it goes really, really bad. And at that point, I think they might have to hit the eject button. Now, that could get worse. It could get better off of that. But I guess I say that to be more as like a guardrail up to things going really, really bad, is that they would have a quick option there to make the change if they needed
Well,
to.
let me ask you this. What's that eject button?
Just trading away Darius Garland. And even if you don't...
See, I don't think it's that. I think it's Jared Allen. Because Jared Allen,
his contract...
When he signed that extension matters. I talked about it back on August 2nd when he signed it.
Sure.
The Cavs will have a window if things go poorly. And I don't expect it to. It doesn't sound like Matt expects it to come to this. Right. But in this situation that NBC brings up, if things go poorly, the Cavs have a 4-day window where they can, and I think Jared Allen would have a ton of suitors, but they have a 4-day window where they could try and repurpose Jared Allen into something that might fit this roster a little bit differently.
Sure. Yeah, I guess you're right. I should add Jared Allen. I'm just more like the condition on the Garland side of things. Just because I got to tell you, man, I know you and I have talked about it. Like, I am just so down and so disappointed after how that season went. And I need to remind myself and keep myself open that he can return to that all-star form. So you're right. I need to not just make that a Darius Garland thing. That also very much has to be a Jared Allen thing too.
Yes. I'm buying stock in Darius Garland. I think he's going to get back to,
I hope so.
I don't expect him to be an all-star this year because I think it's really difficult to have two guys on the same team that play essentially the same position, make the all-star team. Like in Donovan Mitchell, as you mentioned, we assume he's going to be an all-star. Like if he's healthy, there's no reason why he won't be in San Francisco for the all-star game. So I don't expect Darius Garland to be there because of that. But I think his level is going to be back at that all-star caliber level that we expect to see from Darius Garland. Then, maybe Evan Mobley makes the all-star team too. But I think that eject button might be Jared Allen. Plus, Matt, the other thing with that is if this doesn't go well, Darius Garland's value, I don't think is going to get back to where it would need to be for the Cavs to trade him.
Sure.
And if this doesn't go well, I think Jared Allen's value could still be high enough to where it makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the different combinations and kind of seeing what Kenny like. I'm also very interested on this season about Kenny Atkinson because at this point, Danny, we know it's just all been thumbs up. Everything's great. Yeah, this is awesome and all that kind of stuff. But now he gets to start working. And now he really does start to get that answer of what works. And the answer might be everything works. And all four of these guys with Strus, with Niang, with all these guys, great, fantastic, it all works. But eventually he's just going to start chipping away at that truth to understand what it's actually going to be. That's one of the more exciting things for me. Right now, everything's got to be thumbs up because he doesn't know. Nobody knows. But starting in just a week, which is awesome. I'm so excited basketball is back, to be honest with you. That has a lot to do with the football team. But I am so excited for this team, for this season. I got to tell you, I'm like through the roof for it. And again, part of that is just as Kenny Atkinson gets that all figured out, how it's all going to work.
Yes, we will see how all this is going to work. I can't wait. I know it sounds like you can't wait for basketball season to be here as well. The Cavs regular season, they've got another preseason game tonight as they take on the Chicago Bulls in their fourth and final preseason game. I'll be back talking about that hopefully at some point this weekend, hoping to have a bonus episode kind of make up for the fact that I missed a couple days being sick this week. But
slacker,
the real thing starts next week. We've got Cavs basketball Wednesday in Toronto against the Raptors to begin the 2024-2025 NBA season. I can't wait for it. Matt can't wait for it. I'm sure you can't wait for it as well. Again, you can find Matt at Big Play. He hosts the Matt Fontana Show every day from 9 to 11. You can check that out. Twitter, YouTube, anywhere else I'm missing that you can consume the Matt Fontana Show.
Twitch. We are streaming on Twitch. So if you want to get off the video game side, we're on Twitch. And then we have an Instagram. We don't stream live there. But a quick plug for our new Big Play app. We have a brand new app. It is free. You get all the shows on there. All of our interviews are on there. So yeah, really the app, YouTube, and Twitter would be the spots.
Yes, check him out there. And from time to time on ESPN Radio as well. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Fontana 83. You can find this podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple, Spotify, everywhere else. Subscribe on both. I don't care. Help me out. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcast, not just one place. Also, if you're watching this video on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get Locked On Cavs content as soon as it's ready. I'll be back later.